In our first month on the job as associate product managers, our focus should be to absorb. So let's talk about what that means. Absorbing context is important because every product manager has to work in context. That is, if we don't understand what our customers are doing and why they're doing it, if we don't understand what our business objectives are, if we don't understand how our engineers and designers work, then we're going to make a lot of decisions that don't make sense, and that's going to cause a lot of pain for the entire company. And on top of that, every product manager works in a different context. And so just because one of your peer product managers makes some decision doesn't necessarily mean that you should make the same one because you're working in totally different situations. And so your first month is the absolute best time to start asking questions and to really get a lay of the land. I know that a lot of times people feel really weird about asking so many questions on their first month on the job because they're worried that, oh, well, I'm going to look like I have no idea what I'm doing, or, oh, I feel really dumb asking so many questions. That's not the case, because here's what happens if you don't ask questions now. If you ask later, then people are going to ask, why didn't you ask those questions earlier when you had the chance? And if you never ask, then you're not going to get critical information that you need to then make sure that you make the right decision. And so in that first month, everyone is giving you the newbie pass. You should use it. Be sure to actually ask people questions. And if you're still really worried about asking people questions, then here's a way to demonstrate value while you're asking questions. If there's something that you don't really understand, totally okay, ask the question and let them know that you're planning on writing down this information and centralizing it in some place so that next time someone else is joining the organization, they won't have to ask that same question because you've already documented it for them. And so think of it this way instead. You're not asking the question just for you, you're asking the question for every other product manager that comes after you. And in this way, you start to practice thinking about scalability. How do we change processes and how do we change the way that we share knowledge in such a way where everyone's going to succeed over the long term? So don't think about it from a selfish perspective of, oh, I'm going to look really bad if I'm asking all these questions. No, think of yourself as a champion for every other associate product manager coming after you. You are gathering the information about this context, whether that is about your customers, whether that's about the business, whether that's about engineers and designers, because there will be someone coming after you and they don't need to ask the same question again if you document it. So be courageous, ask that question because you will ramp up that way and you'll also enable others to ramp up even faster after you. And that's how you demonstrate that you can create large impact at scale. So in our very first month, what we want to do is we want to focus on these 4 areas. First, we need to identify who our key stakeholders are, and we want to build up a relationship with them. And so most of the time, your key stakeholders are going to be, again, your direct manager, your direct engineering counterparts, your direct design counterparts, and then likely someone who is customer facing, whether that's someone in operations or sales or marketing or customer success, usually one of them. Of course, there will be many, many other stakeholders that you're going to be working with. Again, you might work with folks who are in legal and compliance or information security or business development or what have you. There are lots and lots of stakeholders. The thing is to make sure that you identify who your key ones really are, the ones that you're going to be interacting with over and over again because your product is directly serving them or because you need their input to build the right product. So make sure that you identify who those key stakeholders are and to build rapport with them. Also, in your first 30 days on the job, make sure to actually play with your product. There's some product that has already been built even before you join the organization. And so what you want to do is you want to explore it, click into it, have fun with it, play with it, and understand how it works. Look for ways where it doesn't work. You want to use this fresh set of eyes right now because your current view of the product is the same view of the product that someone who's totally new to your product would have. It's really helpful for you to have that fresh set of eyes so you can see, oh, well, there's friction in these different places. And so by identifying these things, you can start to think about, well, how will I improve the product now that I own it? The third thing you want to do is you want to start to get a grasp of all of the existing documentation, processes, research, etc. are, because once you know where all these things are, you can then jump back onto them very, very quickly. What you don't want to happen is that, right now in your first 30 days, you don't have too much that you need to do in terms of writing specs or talking to customers or whatever. And then later on, let's say in month 9, you have a bunch of stuff that's happening and you're super underwater and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go find this particular document or this particular process. And you have to spend hours and hours trying to find it. But instead, if you already found it within your first month on the job and you have a bookmark to it, you can come back to it very, very quickly. So go ahead and make sure that you index those existing documents, like come up with your own mini table of contents or your own little wiki so that way you can find what are all the different things I'm going to need later on the job. And finally, make sure that you start learning about your industry vertical. Because again, your first 3 days on the job, you're going to have a little bit more time than the other days that you have. the first 30 days on the job is going to be the time when you have the most exploration time. And so now is the time to start building those good habits about learning about your industry. Now is the time to start looking at how does customer feedback flow in, start to look for what are the different news sources that I should be looking at, start understanding who our core customers are, etc. So that way we can start to position ourselves as subject matter experts. So something to keep in mind is that product managers are self-directing. That is, other people will give you assignments for sure, but you're also expected to come up with your own work and then to deliver it. So on top of anything that your manager is giving you, you'll want to demonstrate that you're proactive and that you're creating value beyond what they just ask you for. So if you can deliver the following 4 items within your first month, you're going to stand out versus other new hires within this organization and even across other organizations. Within your first month, you want to make sure that you've already got ongoing one-on-one cadences with key stakeholders, whether that's on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, whatever it is. Make sure that you've already set up that framework for continuing to check in with people who really matter for the success of your product. You want to start to create a beginner's guide documentation so that way when others join the company, they will also be able to ramp up more quickly than when you ramped up. And so again, it's so important to start asking questions and to find where is there missing knowledge and to fill in that missing knowledge, because that demonstrates that you're thinking as a business leader. You're thinking as an owner and not just someone who's doing tasks. So you want to start to craft that beginner's guide. You also want to create an index doc, which you can use as a handy shortcut to jump out to key documents, key links, etc. And you'll want to create a simple one-pager document, which just has a couple of industry statistics, a couple of key trends that you've noticed, some opportunities where you can potentially take the product. If you've got all of these things done within your first month, you're way ahead of the curve, because now you understand who are the different people that you're working with inside and outside the company. How does your product work? Where's all of the core information? What are the opportunities to grow your product? So of course, your manager will give you tasks and you should absolutely go do them. So those are highest priority. But wherever you have spare time, start to knock out these other deliverables so that way you can rise to the top. And so reflecting on our first month, we're absorbing the context, not because we're going to use it to deliver value within our very first month, but because this sets up the foundation for us to then do the right things, make the right decisions in the future months. We're trying to build up rapport and we're trying to gain internal influence within the organization so that way when we say we're taking the product in this direction, people will know you as a thoughtful leader and they're not going to say, oh, well, they're just making it up. They'll know that you've already spent a lot of time in terms of understanding how the product works, how the industry works, and that you're listening to their feedback. And with that, that wraps up this lesson.